Quote number 1. We are what we believe we are. This means that we actually are in reality what we think about ourselves in our minds. Our thoughts have a direct connection with our actions. If a person assumes that he or she is the most powerful mind in the world, then he or she actually is. Scientifically, if we feed our mind with the content about productivity and efficiency, our mind starts to develop patterns and develops our thoughts in such a way that our actions start to become productive and efficient. If there are some beliefs in our minds, they are actually there because we have experienced something in our life. At some point in time in our life, we have to have belief which makes us act. If we read about success stories in the past, most people who made it big in life have one thing in common: self-belief. When these people were struggling and everything was going against them, they believed that they will make it. For example, Helen Keller was an American author who was both deaf and blind, but still she became an author. She lived life to the fullest despite her challenges and disabilities. One thing to learn from this is that we should believe in our own selves no matter what kind of challenges we are facing. Quote number 2. The task of the modern educator is not to cut down jungles, but to irrigate deserts. This means that educators today should be interested in helping the poor, disadvantaged and needy people who need education the most. There are places in the world where getting educated is like a pipe dream for people. In these kind of places, even basic education is not available. Most of the times educators are busy reaching people who can afford top-class institutes and degrees, or people who are genuinely passionate about educating themselves. These are already developed jungles which do not need to be cut down. Educators should be focused more on deserts where the possibility of education is low, so that these deserts can actually become jungles in the long term. Literally, some type of deserts have actual potential and if irrigated properly can give rise to more fertile soils than normal ground. By the same token, some youngsters have a lot of talent and aptitude which, if utilized in the right way, can help build a better world. One thing to learn from this is that educators should try and target the areas where education sector is not well developed and where there is untapped talent, to make the world a better place. Quote number 3. Reason is the natural order of truth, but imagination is the organ of meaning. This means that reason is the logic behind things. It is about how and why things work. Imagination, however, is the brain of thinking. If we see closely, almost all the inventors in the world make use of both reasoning and imagination to create something of value. For example, Isaac Newton discovered the third law of motion, which states, to every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. The reason behind the principle is that energy can neither be created nor be destroyed, but it can be changed from one form to another. But another inventor made use of it and invented the trampoline. C.S. Lewis is the writer of the Chronicles of Narnia book series, which later was turned into movies. However, C.S. Lewis was against the idea of visual representation of his books because visual creation limits the imagination of the audience. Novels are words which are written so that each reader can imagine the story in his or her own way using his or her own mind. Quote number 4. There are far, far better things ahead than any we leave behind. This means that we should forget the past and live in the future. This depends more on the person if he or she is intelligent enough to see the opportunities in the future. People tend to live in the past and often blame the past for the present rather than taking action in present to improve their future. What past is no longer there and we can't change it. But we can change our present for our future. For example, Karoli Takix, 2-time Olympic gold medalist, injured his right hand due to the explosion of a faulty grenade during an army training session in 1938. If he wanted, he could have given up, but he continued and switched immediately shooting with his left hand because he knew the fact that there is always something better coming. One thing to learn from this that we should not dwell on our past and should always channelize our energies in the present for a better future.